Kingdom.
Fuck that house now. I'm back. To the top, I'ma make it. Niggas just can't take it. To the top, I'ma make 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 it. Niggas just can't take it. Yeah.
Yo, what's good, YouTube? It's your boy AJ. I'm here with Rage and Cypher. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Nets Kingdom 1. All our Twitters are scrolling at the bottom. And check out the articles, netskingdom.net. And don't forget to support that. Check out the articles on the web. Today, we're going to talk about CJ to the Spurs. There's been some rumors on Twitter, some Spurs reporters posting it. We're going to talk about it. Let me read this article. Shout out to Dusty Garza. News for San Antonio.com. That's where I'm getting the article from. If you go on my Twitter page, I'm gonna probably post the article later. But it says here, several NBA media insiders are suggesting that the Spurs may be interested in trading for Brooklyn Nets forward Cam Johnson. San Antonio would likely dangle Keldon Johnson and draft compensation in trade talks to further upgrade the roster around Victor Wembanyama this season. What else is here? Just days ago, sportscasters Don Harris and Chuck Milkatinek mentioned on their podcast that San Antonio might not be done with offseason roster moves and that Keldon Johnson was regarded as the most likely player to be traded. So, Cam Johnson to the Spurs, man. I mean, we did a couple of mock trades, but this one is the one that kind of made sense. I mean, this mock trade could go either way. I mean, we got Keldon Johnson and a top 5 protected 2025 round 1 first from Atlanta. And then the Spurs get CJ. I've seen 2028 protected, and I've seen second rounds, maybe like 3 second rounds with Keldon. But what do you think, Rage, on this mock trade, or what are your thoughts on, I guess, the Spurs? What do you think is the most realistic?
Well, in terms of the net standpoint, obviously we look at it in terms of a really good trade, being able to get off of CJ and get a possible pick on top of that is nice. We weren't necessarily expecting anything crazy for Cam Johnson, but being able to get a guy like Keldon Johnson at his age with better stats essentially is huge. But if you look at it from both sides, we obviously are well, why would the Spurs do this? And although Keldon Johnson's on a solid contract, he is younger and is not didn't have necessarily the greatest 3-point percentage. He can shoot it, but Cam Johnson does have the edge in terms of that and the playoff experience. Obviously, they also just added Harrison Barnes to their team. So that could also, that's also an indication of them trying to win now. And if Keldon Johnson's, his stats have just got worse this past year after he averaged, obviously there was Wemby, but the year before this past year where he averaged 15.7 points, he had 22 that year before that and 17 the year before that. So things went down. He averaged 15.7 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 2.8 assists. But in terms of a trade, this looks really good on the Nets end. But in terms of the Spurs, you question it a little bit. But Cam Johnson is the better shooter, does have the playoff experience, and you just added Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, it makes sense. Saif, what are your thoughts on CJ going to the Spurs? Does it make sense? Because I know Spurs fans are gonna look at this and be like, oh, we're not trying to give up anything. Keldon, we want to keep Keldon, because I think Spurs fans do admire Keldon, but like you said, they have some depth, a little bit of young pieces on their team. I don't think Keldon is a non-touchable for them, and then like Ray was saying, I think he has to get paid. So Saif, what are your thoughts on the Keldon Johnson Spurs?
Yeah, I think it is interesting. So I think the Spurs, I don't know how Spurs fans would react, but it does make a lot of basketball sense because Cam Johnson, 4 inches taller, he's more of a forward, whereas Keldon is a guard. In terms of the stats, so Cam Johnson averaged less points, less assists, and less rebounds than Keldon Johnson. So, on paper, it does look like a downgrade. However, the efficiency look, despite Cam Johnson having a down year, and I think we all agree he had a down year last year, 39% from three on 6 attempts per game, whereas Keldon Johnson last year, 35% from three on 5 attempts.
Yeah.
So just in terms of the shooting, he's a better shooter. Defensively, Cam Johnson was kind of neutral last year, but in the past, where he was playing, a lesser role on offense, he was a better defender, a more disruptive perimeter defender. So there is a scenario where I see this does make sense for both parties. And the first round pick, I mean, I would be surprised if it was that lightly protected, because we are getting, I don't know, it is interesting because Keldon Johnson is a weird player because he's that Cam Thomas archetype, but he's not as good as it. So I don't know, is it the protection on it is a little debatable, but I could definitely see this happening.
Yeah. Because like I said, I'm not really like stuck on, oh, we got to get an unprotected first or protect. Like, if we get a protected 2028 first, I'll be happy with anything we can get for CJ. Like 3 seconds, give me a protected first. I'm not really gonna I'm not a stickler to the Spurs, like, oh, it has to be a great pick. I'm just like, give us some draft compensation at the least, because that's what we
Yeah,
really,
and
we
you
really
also
want CJ
look at
for.
everything too in terms of like Keldon Johnson as well. We know how bad the Spurs were just this past year,
Yeah.
and he only started 27 out of the 69 games that he played. So
Yeah.
if he's already on the bench and you're trying to win and it's just the play is just going down and you're looking for an actual type of wing, you're gonna get that. You'll get that in Cam Johnson, like Cypher said. He's proven over the years that in a lesser role he does look better defensively, and the efficiency you can't argue with in terms of 3-point percentage.
Yeah. So I'm looking at his contract from Spotrac. It says he's getting, well, I guess he signed his rookie extension, because I'm looking at a rookie extension 2023 to 2026. It says he's going to get 19 mil next year, 17 mil, and then 17 mil 2026, and then 2027 he's an unrestricted free agent. So that's a movable good contract. He's not getting too much. It's not really crazy. And then I go back to cap sheets, right? And I think Devin Vassell is the leading. Here we go. Devin Vassell is getting 29 million. Keldon's getting 19 million. Harrison 18 million. Zach Collins 16 million. Wembanyama 12 million. And then you got Chris Paul, Stephon Castle, Trey Jones. So when I think of the Spurs, I think they really kind of went like before they made the Harrison Barnes move and the Harrison Barnes move. They were very, very I think they were guard heavy, because you got all these guards, Chris, Trey. You just drafted Stephon Castle. He's a guard. I feel like they needed some more wing help. Like their team needed shooting, because I think that's what the Spurs really want. They want 3-point shooting, and they needed wing help. So I think if they are trying to go win now, I don't know if this is like the championship team to do it, but I think this would, if the Spurs make this move to get CJ, I think they just want to be in the mix. Like they just want to get Wemby in the playoffs, get his feet wet. Maybe they'll be an 8th seed or a play-in team, a high play-in team if you get CJ. They probably just want Wemby to get in the mix and not really because that team is not no championship roster, but it's just it's a good team for Wemby's development, because you're going to put Wemby in the playoffs and he's going to be battling against the top players in the league and trying to accelerate his process to getting to win the West. But what do you think, Rage?
Yeah, no, like we were talking about that, but in terms
Yeah.
of what the Spurs are looking at, you're not necessarily trying to compete for a title now, but
Yeah.
more so, you can still get guys in the future as well. And Cam Johnson, with Cam Johnson, he still has multiple years left on that contract. We know
Yeah.
we just signed him to that big extension
Yeah. I'm
last
pretty sure he has
year.
like 2 or
So
3 years left. Yeah.
he's still got some years on his deal, and the Spurs can get, good relatively quick,
Yeah.
especially with this Wemby development. Obviously, they added Harrison Barnes, Chris Paul. They still have Devin Vassell. It'll be a good development for Wemby, but Cam Johnson is also, it could be a solid step in the right direction, because if you look at, their wings, you look at Keldon Johnson and you look at Sohan, you're
Yeah.
not getting any great 3-point shooting.
Yeah, they desperately needed that shooting, because I think putting Wemby, putting shootings around Wemby definitely helps so much, because Wemby's going to start getting when he gets better and better, he's going to pull a lot of double teams. He's 7'5". He's really unstoppable at times. They're going to start doubling him, and he's going to need shooting around him, because it's going to look crazy when the double teams and triple teams are going to go crazy. But yeah, Spurs, it's like if I'm the Spurs, let us know in the comments, Spurs fans, what do you think about this move? Because I think that if CJ goes to the Spurs, you guys are probably going to be a play-in or possibly just edging in that play-in, I think, because those are decent pieces. I mean, and then I think from there, if you guys make the play-in or you make the playoffs, I think you still have a ton of draft picks. The 2025 draft is coming up. You have your own pick. You can start picking more pieces to complement Wemby, more young pieces. So it could be like a mixture of young players and vets, kind of like what the Celtics did, like young players that are good and vets. A little bit of mixture of vets, a little bit of that in between. Maybe that's what the Spurs are looking for, but let us know in the comment section. CJ going to the Spurs, how do you guys feel about it? Nets fans, what is your return for CJ? I know it's like the third video we've done on CJ, but if you're going to trade with the Spurs, what is your ideal trade package? Let us know in the comments. Hit that like button. Follow us on Instagram at NetsKingdom1 and NetsKingdom.net. We got articles dropping on NetsKingdom.net. Appreciate you guys so much. We'll be back.